Mr. Blume, what success have you had in the last year with your alcohol revolution?
Well, gosh, there's been a lot. You know, we've had very little press coverage because basically, well, you know, it's pretty hard to break through the oil company influence, you know, over
Mr.
the
Blume,
press.
I want to just interrupt you for a moment, if I may. The way I heard you is because I'm a very bad sleeper, and I heard you on the radio at 3 o'clock, 3 a.m. or 2 a.m. in the morning. That's how I got in touch with you. So I could see they're trying to keep you away from the radio and for television. Have you been on television before?
Well, basically, only a couple of quick news clips, but most television shows won't touch us with a 10-foot pole because we know that oil companies are major advertisers. So the radio show, you heard me on Coast to Coast. I did one of those in July this last summer.
Right.
And so many people heard that show and went out and started buying alcohol the next day for their cars, because you can go on my website, which is alcoholcanbeagas.com, and we have a place where you can go and locate the closest alcohol station to where you live. So maybe 1 million people went out the next day and started putting alcohol in their car and found out it worked great. And so the amount of alcohol sold in the United States...
I'm putting up a map of where you can get the alcohol because I got it on the internet. Here's a map, ladies and gentlemen, and it tells you exactly where to go, including in New York City. I'm sorry to interrupt, sir.
Oh, that's not a problem. So once you know where to go and you can start doing this, well, people started doing that, and the amount of alcohol being sold compared to the year before went up 70% in 1 month. And the oil companies panicked because all these people from coast to coast were now using alcohol instead of gasoline. So if 1 million of them went out there and did it, because that is quite a large show, and they use 500 gallons of alcohol a year, in other words, half of the fuel they normally use, well, that's 500 million gallons of fuel, and at $5 a gallon, we just took $2.5 billion out of the oil companies' pockets. So needless to say, they had quite a fit over that, and we're sending warning letters to all these gas stations trying to tell them, oh, don't let people put alcohol in their gas tanks, you know, there might be something wrong with that, you know, you got to stop them. But of course, you can't stop people from putting alcohol in their tank if it's at the pump, and so I'd say the revolution is off and running.
When you come to New York, I want you to be on this show on TV.
Well,
when will you be in New York? When is the next time you'll be in New York City?
Oh, well, probably not much longer. I've been trying to get out there and promote the book, and there's a lot of people on the East Coast that think that we should be out here talking more about it. We're trying to have workshops. We're trying to schedule some in New York right now, and Chicago and in San Francisco, where people can learn how to make their own alcohol for about $1 a gallon, which you can do in a backyard, or you can do on a farm, or even in the suburbs, and basically fuel your own car with waste products that are available in your community, or if you're a farmer, with crops that you grow to produce fuel. Because basically, we don't have much of a choice about this anymore. Oil's running out, and as it does, it's going to get more expensive, and we're going to start facing shortages and rationing. Recently, in the southeast of the United States, the oil companies did a nice test run on scaring the population down there. Most people didn't hear about this, but in Georgia, North Carolina, and Tennessee, the oil companies shut down delivery of fuel to gas stations all over that region. People were in line for 2 or 3 miles, and the police had to supervise people buying gasoline so there weren't fist fights and line cutting and that kind of thing. The schools were closed in Atlanta because teachers couldn't get gas to drive to school, and news vans were reporting on television news that we wish we could bring you the news, but we couldn't get gas for our news van. So this all happened just a couple of months ago.
I see. What do you say to people who say that a move to alcohol will cause more deforestation?
Well, that's patently nonsense. You know, the first thing you need to realize is that the major reason we have deforestation is the fact that 2 billion people on the planet cook their food with wood. So a couple of Swedish nonprofits have started helping villages in the third world put in very small alcohol distilleries and provide alcohol stoves for people to cook on, because people can grow a small amount of cassava or other starchy crops in their village to make alcohol so that everybody can cook over it. A lot of people in this world have to walk 6 hours one way to get an armload of wood to cook their food for the week. And alcohol alleviates that suffering. And not to mention the millions of cases of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease and eye injuries for women and children cooking indoors over wood. So if we want to stop deforestation, we need to start helping people cook over something clean and non-toxic like alcohol. So, in some ways, the most important use of alcohol isn't to run cars. It's to help the majority of the population of the world that cooks over wood to cook over something clean.
Unemployment is projected this year to possibly hit 8%, or at the worst is the Great Depression. What would alcohol revolution do to unemployment, or to employment in the United States and the rest of the world?
Well, when you produce oil and gasoline, it takes almost no people to do that. I mean, very few jobs are created in the oil industry. It's pretty automated. But when you talk about producing alcohol for fuel in your local community and on a national basis, you're talking about a lot of jobs that are not only permanent, but not exportable. Because let's face it, the reason why the alcohol is being produced is the solar energy is falling on your country. And so you can't export an alcohol production job to Singapore when the sun is falling in Iowa, and making crops there. So good studies by the Department of Energy some years ago showed that if we replaced our current fuel, our fossil fuel, with alcohol, we create 26 million new permanent good jobs in America, and that would not only reduce unemployment in the United States, it would end unemployment in the United States. In other words, producing our own energy within our own borders is probably the most powerful expansion of employment that we've seen in many decades. And it's something that every country ought to be responsible for producing their own fuel and not importing it from somewhere else. Because, as we know, importing it from somewhere else leads to problematic things like war. So, everybody producing their own fuel would help a lot. But, there's a kind of a important aspect to this that people don't often think about. When you spend $10 on gas at your local Chevron station, that money leaves the community and goes to a Geneva bank account tonight, like gone, left your community forever. But if you go ahead and spend $10 on alcohol produced locally by, say, Bob the farmer, well, that $10 you gave him, he now spends in the community. So he goes and gets his truck fixed by Jane. Jane takes those alcohol dollars, and she goes ahead and then has her door fixed by a carpenter. And the carpenter takes those alcohol dollars and goes and gets a haircut. And the guy with the haircut goes ahead to the clerk at the local store and, buys something from them. And they go ahead and buy food back at Bob's farm, produced from the byproducts from the alcohol fuel plant. So every one of those transactions in the community creates wealth within the community. It's an injection of capital into the community. And we've all seen what's happening in America with the banks draining the capital out of the community at this point.
That's right.
So that multiplier effect, you don't get that with oil. You get that with a locally produced fuel. So not only do we save the money we're spending on oil, but it's reinvested in America and in American small business.